Hey everyone, this podcast is part of Story Mode, the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. You can support us and gain access to other great exclusive podcasts at patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds. Welcome to Guylight, a podcast about vampires. Ho, ho, ho.
A heavy sigh is really the only way to start this endeavor.
That's true.
I don't know any other way to do it. I really don't.
I don't know. I was just gonna say, like, hi everybody, welcome to yet another episode of our ongoing series. Our Guylight.
How the fuck?
Let's throw him off, Adam. Let's throw him off.
Like, I was like so frozen with like, I don't understand. What is this bit? I don't get it. Where the fuck are we going?
There's not much of a bit. I'm sick of introducing series. Why not? Why can't we just pretend?
You strapped on a rocket pack and flew right into a building. Like you did not wait. You submarine the fuck out of this intro. I don't even know what to do about it. Oh my god!
Look, it's always going to be different every time.
Yeah. Right. Who knows? Yeah, who knows?
There's no format here.
Right. We can't possibly plan to artistically eclipse the subject we're talking about.
No,
that would be pretentious of us. So, our intros are going to be very devil may care.
I think so.
Yeah, sure. For that matter, this whole fucking podcast might be devil may care. We might do 20 minutes. Can you imagine we just turned in a 20-minute episode, Dave?
Oh, God, if we're just like, and I guess that's all we have to say about this.
And it's at the 20-minute mark, and everyone's fucking furious.
I don't think that's going to happen because
definitely not.
I got some notes. Should we? All right. How do we properly? Let's have them hear us talk this out. How do we properly introduce
ourselves? Well, this is a special limited run podcast series on the movies Twilight, the Twilight movies.
That's correct.
Which neither you nor I have seen.
Right. Should we say our names?
Yeah, you should.
I'll say your name.
Great.
Adam Ganser.
Yes, and he's David Bell.
Yeah.
I feel like that's how you would have said it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I did you justice.
So you've never seen the Twilights?
No, I haven't. I think I'd seen a little bit of the first one before.
Okay,
there are a couple scenes that seem familiar, but I had not remembered any of it.
Okay, yeah, I had seen this first one.
Okay.
I watched the whole thing.
Me too.
Like when I first saw it, I mean.
Oh, I see.
I didn't remember most of it. I remembered little pieces, like the car scene, the car accident,
yes.
and a lot of things that came rushing back to me, like the baseball scene.
The baseball scene.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, yeah. Sorry, we gotta wait. I gotta wait.
Okay, should we wait? Should we wait?
No. You do your thing. I don't want to.
Oh, that's all. I just wanted us to share. Yeah. What else? What is your knowledge of Twilight? Because we've basically never seen the Twilights, and we're gonna watch them all now.
I mean, my impression of Twilight is that it's essentially a romance novel disguised as young adult novels.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which, by the way, this movie did not disabuse me of that notion whatsoever. It seemed very much like that's what it was.
What's your knowledge of the future of Twilight? Like, what do you know about it? Yeah.
Great. So I know that, I mean, it's pretty, a lot of it you can intuit from the first movie, but it's pretty clear that Jacob is part of a werewolf clan that seems to be also Native American. And
I don't know. Okay. Yeah, that seems clear from this movie. Yeah. I knew because of the pop culture.
Well, they say they're the wolves.
Right, and they're clearly
hate the
up to something. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, they must be werewolves. If you're going to introduce the concept of wolves in a vampire movie, they're going to be werewolves. Like, what the fuck are we talking about here?
Right.
So these are the things I believe. I believe Jacob is a love interest and a werewolf. I believe that Isabella Swan, worst name I can think of in movie history, Isabella Swan might be a special girl. Like, she might be like some other magic thing that's not human.
Right.
Because that's
one of my favorite parts where he's like, "You're the only one I can't read the mind of."
I'm
You're
like, oh, great.
It's like blank in there. Like, oh no. Like, maybe she's just an idiot.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, she's just incredibly dumb.
Just like,
You've never met a person that dumb.
Yeah, we're just whining feedback in her brain at all times.
She's like what you'd think Homer Simpson's brain would be.
Yeah, exactly.
But she's just a teenage girl. No, but she's clearly being set up to be a special Harry Potter girl, right? Like, that's her deal.
I mean,
right?
You're right. I only just realized it. You saying that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was.
I think it's. Yeah, I think I just wasn't perceptive enough. Like, I think it is obvious now that you say it.
Yeah, because to me, it's like once her thoughts are the only impervious ones, it's like, well, then she's magic, because there's no other explanation. Or
either that, or
she's got other vampire, like she's a more ancient vampire. In some way, she's not a human being. That's all I know.
Either. Also possible is that we'll never hear about it again, and it's just bad writing.
Oh, that's not impossible. Although, to me, and I don't want to jump way too far ahead, but to me, this movie feels like just a setup for a larger story. That's all it feels like to me.
Yes.
Like, it's not really a movie. It's
like the first episode of a series.
It's
like a TV series.
Yes, that's what it is. Or like the first act of a good action romance story. You know what I mean? Like it feels like for instance, the Hobbits getting all the way to that meeting about the ring in the first Lord of the Rings movie. Mm-hmm. Like, that could have been, like, they could have condensed Twilight, the first movie, to be basically that, right?
Yes.
Sort of intro into the world, and like, now you know what the problem is, and now we're going to launch into the larger war between wolves and vampires, right?
Right. It's weird. It's like, so far, it's not so much a war as it is like neighbors who are really passive aggressive towards each other. Right. I'm not seeing much war.
Just asshole neighbors. Yeah.
They introduced that where they made a truce. It's like a tense truce where all of werewolves blackmailed all of vampires.
Right. Somehow.
Am I getting that right?
Yeah, that's what it sounded like. That's my understanding.
Okay.
Although from the flashback, from the dramatically represented flashback, it's supposed to be clear to us that it was in fact this specific family that agreed to it.
Yeah, it's them in the
specifically
flashback.
Them. Yeah.
Which I thought was like you kind of see Jacob in there. And
it's weird. Yeah.
And I was thinking, I thought that's a twist. I thought that was like the twist.
There's a chance that there's a chance that it actually is at least lored out. Like, it's like there's actually lore to these decisions, and they're not just confusing, stupid decisions.
Well, it felt like these movies were for people who knew the book, where the books were heading. I hate to skip ahead, but the last shot of the woman like watching them,
yes,
and going down the stairs, I was like, okay, and that felt like it was. It felt like it was setting something up that I was supposed to know what it was.
She's the woman that escaped from that trio of other vampires.
Oh, okay, yeah, white people.
That's who she is. Right, they all blended together in this movie.
Yeah,
right. I totally agree with that.
Well, okay,
yeah, it's hard.
I'm waiting for our next section. It's hard to
find the finger hold in this to start with this. It's very
we're in our first section, by the way. Our first section,
which
being
we're calling
called
Highlight, right?
Highlight, and that's us just sort of going over the plot,
right?
But I guess this is like a special extra introduction because I just wanted to know how much you knew, about the series as a whole.
I feel like I've said everything that I know for sure.
Okay.
I do know that. I mean, I do know that it has to get into a larger conflict, and that. Apparently the internet sided with the werewolves. Like, the internet thinks Team Werewolves is the best.
That's interesting.
At least that's my impression from your Discord, but also from other conversations I seem to remember.
Okay.
Like, I just remember all the Reddit fans being like, Team Jacob, man, instead of Team Edward.
Right. They're still all talking about it. We're right. We got our finger right on the pulse with this.
By the way, since this is clearly just for our fans, when I tweeted that when I was watching, I was like, maybe I shouldn't tweet this because I don't want to spoil it. And then you just fucking sprinted right into it.
Oh, damn right I did.
You're like, again, strapping on that rocket pack right into a building.
No surprises. I just to outline my knowledge of
please.
this series. Watching it, I remember that there's a love triangle, and there's the Team Jacob or Team Edward.
Yes.
I will have to, by the end of this, we'll have to very lately join one of these teams. I imagine
we'll have to make a shirt for her or something.
Yeah, I know that she has a baby.
Oh God, she has a baby. Yeah, that was spoiled for me. I don't know
how much I should spoil. I don't know how it ends, but I do know, or at least I think that there's going to be a lot more about whether or not she becomes a vampire.
That's clearly that's pretty only lingering question from the first one that there needs to be a movie about, right?
Yeah, I have a lot of questions.
No. I'm sorry. When I say lingering question, I mean one the movie wants us to ask. There's basically two things the movie wants us to ask: what's going on with Team Jacob, and will she become a vampire or not? Right, those are the two things we're supposed to care about.
Yeah,
that's all I fucking know. The rest of it, I like. If you told me like, oh, there's one movie that takes place in like Indonesia or something, I'd be like, okay,
yeah,
like no fucking, totally could. Who knows?
What are there 5 of these?
There's 5. Yeah, that's a lot, I thought. I thought like 3 seemed like the right amount of this.
Mm-hmm. I think they split up the last book.
Yeah, they did the Harry Potter thing where the last book was 2.
Yeah. We this is basically establishing we don't know much about these series, and I feel like neither do a lot of people.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't think a lot of people, maybe some people saw Twilight and then they, didn't see the rest.
I think hating Twilight was the way most people felt about, most people culturally experienced Twilight, right?
Well, yeah, I guess that brings me into my next question for you.
Sure.
How did you like this movie?
Okay, thus begins our next segment, which I just realized we should call Twi-Fight.
Ooh.
So that you and I can duke it out over our opinions. Only if we have something to
fight about.
Yeah, well, sure. Why not? We'll try to, a little conflict
Let's just
helps.
keep whipping out. Let's just make sections as we go.
That is 100% my plan, Dave. I'm going to be like Johnny Appleseed with fucking segments and tiers. That's my thing. So, look, so I didn't hate this that much.
Yeah, neither did I, Adam.
I didn't think it was good because, so I can tell you when I started to look at my phone. I started to look at my phone basically around the baseball game. That's when I stopped being interested in the movie because it stopped being interesting and started trying to wrap itself up as a movie.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the first half of the movie...
it suddenly needed a plot, and it brings the plot... they have all the little inciting incidents, about the murders beforehand.
Right.
But it sort of feels like we're just... it's literally, in the middle of this scene, just vampires show up, and they're like, hey, we're evil. And it's just oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, you brought a snack. Well, this will take us at least 45 minutes to resolve.
Right.
Right. It did... And it also... It was a mistake to have a plot like that, because it made the whole thing feel very case of the week. Mm-hmm. It made it feel like, oh, this belongs on TV. In fact, I kind of think that looking at it, why wasn't this a TV show? It totally could have been like a limited series.
There wasn't enough there, but they could have stretched it out. They could have made it work.
There's totally enough there. They imagine if any of the other high schoolers were characters,
right?
That's easily a show,
right? That okay, yeah. When this was most interesting, when I was enjoying this movie. It's when it was a high school drama.
Yes, I agree.
Where there's just vampires.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
I was with it the whole way.
I had a lot of trouble. I want to sit on that comment for a little bit and talk about it because it deserves it. I enjoyed this movie all the way up to the baseball game. I was having a good time with it.
Yeah.
I knew that it was kind of veering more and more into vampire shit, which I cared the least about of all the things that were going on. Not that I didn't like it. I just was like, oh, I kind of like this I like this place as a high school.
I love the Pacific Northwest as a setting.
Yes, I liked the dad a lot. I thought the dad was a really interesting character.
He was great.
Yeah, he was well performed and like well cast, and that relationship with his daughters is actually interesting. You know, like I can see
there
more
was
of
a
that.
lot there.
Yeah, I agree. It was well performed by both people. I mean, Kristen Stewart was good in especially that relationship, but others too.
Right.
She's not as bad as I thought, as I remember people saying she was.
I think both her and Robert Pattinson are playing the roles.
Well,
I think everybody's doing their part exactly like they need to be.
Robert Pattinson,
if that makes sense.
Totally. It's absolutely serviceable. Robert Pattinson has an unforgivably stupid role to play. Like, it's just so dumb.
Well,
because he has to be 17 in this world, and he has the feelings and decision making and logic of a 17-year-old, but he's 100-something years old.
He is a stunted pedophile.
Right, it's completely fucking ridiculous. It's like, the guy's 100 years old. He wouldn't do any of this shit. There's no way.
I want to talk for days about the vampire family.
Yeah, and we will. Okay, I don't want to...
Okay.
That's fair. So do we want to talk about the high school a little more first?
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what section we're in at this point, Adam.
This is what Tom does. No. So look, okay. First of all, the high school.
Okay.
Did you have any trouble with it? Did the high school trouble you at all?
The parking lot bothered me. That was a small parking lot for a high school.
She also parks that red truck in a place that's like not a parking spot when you first see her. You're like, wait, that's not a parking spot.
Yeah, the geography of the entire high school was...
very confusing.
It was like Inception. Like, it was like a weird dream. Because I couldn't get the geography at all.
Yes, I had.
Whenever they parked outside the high school, I was like, are they parking at a manor?
Yeah.
Like, it was like on a weird hill, and it was a small parking lot.
They couldn't decide
and you
if
never
it was
saw
level.
the high school from it.
Yeah. The parking lot was a real problem because it's such a load-bearing place in this movie, because it's where the most important dramatic thing happens.
We spend a lot of time in the parking lot.
Well, that is kind of true about high school, though. Like, people do kind of hang out in the parking lot, so it does deserve to be a place. But it really was. It really wasn't a satisfactorily rendered place. For a lot of reasons. Also,
there's no establishing shots. Like, I didn't know. You'd never see anything beyond like that one little bit of parking lot.
It's partly because, and I don't, not to skip into the craft piece, because this is one of my big comments there, but like the director felt like they took some cocaine before every single shoot. Like they were just like zooming and flying over shit, and you're like, all right,
the first sequence, the deer chasing sequence, I believe involves, I don't know, 300 cuts?
It's a lot.
1,000 cuts?
It's a lot of cuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of cuts. The director definitely like took some drugs and really went for it when they shot this, because it's very aggressive camera-wise.
It is.
Surprisingly so for being basically a romance novel movie.
This movie is an assault on your senses. It really is.
It's an assault on the cinematic language, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I actually liked some of the creative decisions being made. But anyway, so okay, here's my big quibble with the high school. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
My big quibble is nobody seems to dislike her. Like,
nobody seems
she walks
to dislike
in,
anything.
Right. She walks in and they're like, hey, man, join the cool kids table. And like, hey, all of us think everyone in this school thinks you're attractive. And even the women that are put off by that still kind of like you because they admit you are attractive.
I get what you mean in terms of the need for conflict, like narratively.
Yeah.
But high schools, I'm always happy to see a high school where it's not just portrayed like a high school.
Sure.
And so I did like the recognition that she's just like a hot kid. Like, I liked the recognition that like, oh yeah, this, like, if they had made her like bullied and nerdy, it's just like, what are you talking about? She's a model. You're all models. And they all kind of acted like they were all models.
A little bit.
And I was like,
they did a little bit. I agree that she wouldn't come in and get treated like a nerd from some out of town. She wouldn't have exactly the same experience of a movie, say, like Mean Girls, where there's a period of time in Mean Girls where they're treating Lindsay Lohan like she's a dirt person. It's like, look, she's hot enough that she's getting in there. Like, people, it's going to be fine. You know, like, people are not going to treat her like this for very long.
Sure.
And I agree with you that that's also true enough of Kristen Stewart that she wouldn't get treated like she wouldn't have as hard a time as an average or, you know, a challenged person. She's going to get special treatment. But it still felt like pretty conflict-free, you know? Like that, and in a way that was like, is this high school or just like a place where the movie is set?
I would have used, it doesn't even have to be typical conflict, but going back on the idea that this should have just been a high school drama, I could have used more conflict within. There was a little, like, they were all very passive aggressive, but everything worked out. It reminded me of, like, I don't know, a Power Rangers episode where, like, everything ultimately works out and they don't really challenge it that much emotionally, where it's like the guy's like, hey, you want to go to the prom with me? And she's like, not really. And he's like, all right, cool.
She's like,
this
no,
won't
but
be an issue.
I'm going to slide in some other lady into the equation, and who apparently you've never thought of before, and you'll just nod and it'll be cool.
Right, and everybody pairs off and everybody's cool except for Jacob.
Right. Jacob doesn't go to high school there. He goes to high school on the reservation, which at this point in the movie quintology seems like a stupid decision. It's like, I get that, I understand that reservations have high schools and so on and so forth.
Plot-wise?
Yeah. Why isn't he in the high school?
Okay, going back to the conflict with the other vampires.
Okay.
The thing that bothers me, and it sounds like the next movie is going to continue this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I thought we were going to get the werewolves by the end of this.
Of course.
Because the movie was setting that up a lot more competently as something that would head towards the resolution.
Yes. Like, it turns out there's 2 supernatural cliques in town.
Right, and they have some sort of fight.
Yeah. And Bella's already picked a side before she found out the real layout of everything.
Right.
That's a fun
instead,
conflict.
they sort of introduced this whole other story that we don't care about.
Well, and also, again, it seems arbitrary because you can always have some new, clique of vampires walk into town who are going to act like crazy maniacs, and that's like, well, that's not an interesting story because that's, that's
I can
less
see
cool
that
than
maybe
True
happening
Blood.
later in the series, but it seems like for this first movie, everything I know about this series, and maybe this is just because of my expectations.
Okay.
Everything I knew about this series is that it is the vampires versus werewolves.
Right.
So I figured that was going to be set up in this series, in this movie, and it's kind of not. It is a little bit, but as like an afterthought. And I guess
I'm guessing that it's really more about Isabella Swan's love life.
Yes.
Because that's really all the second act is of the movie, is just romance novel stuff.
Right.
Like, it's not setting up it's not even Romeo and Juliet, which is...
It's romance stuff. It's also piggyback rides.
Oh my God, the piggyback ride was like...
So many piggyback rides.
It was treated like it was like she was supposed to be singing A Whole New World or something. Like,
it was incredible.
It was like, this feels like it couldn't be comfortable, and it's certainly not whimsical or cute.
It's just weird.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
It's like introducing your children to clowns and being like, see, look how funny they are. Yeah. I don't know. Not so sure. Not so sure. Yeah, I don't know how that's the sexy romantic moment of the movie. Although the movie did have a few very sexy moments.
It's a very sexy movie.
Yeah, like the first kiss they had felt was one of the best movie kisses I'd seen in a very long time. It was like, oh man, there's actual attraction here. At least it seems like she's attracted to him. It's hard to tell if he's attracted to her, but
Are we in Guylight? I have a lot of questions.
No, not
about
yet, not yet. No, because there's other problems we need to get into. I feel like we should at least wait to the 40-minute mark before you get into Guylight.
Okay.
Because we'll So we've talked about the high school. I
have another problem with the high school, but I don't know if it counts as a Guylight question. Well, I don't know how. I don't know our system yet.
Dave, I'm making it up as I go. Go ahead. Pitch me your question. I'm into it.
My other big problem with the high school is that no one seemed to know that those people were obviously vampires.
Right? What the fuck? Like
They're the worst
what
vampires
in the
ever.
World?
Like when they're like, "Oh, that's the Cullens." I thought one of them was going to be like, "Yeah, we're pretty sure they're vampires."
That's the
but we're just not going to question
first
it.
thing they
'Cause
should
they're
say.
Clearly vampires.
Not only do they look like vampires, no one has those eye colors. That's number one problem. Number two, either they're all wearing lipstick, which is, fine, but deserves inquiry in high school.
Yeah.
Or they're vampires.
They're vampires. When Bella is like, "Your eyes changed," and he's like, "It's the fluorescence," and walks away, I was like, "You've been a vampire for like 100 years,
That's
and
your
you can't
best
figure
line?
out a reason."
Yeah. He probably used to just tell them all they had the vapors. Look, you had the vapors.
Yeah,
and, that
exactly.
worked for 55 years, and he never replaced it.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably it. He has some really bad explanations. Like, what does he explain? Oh, the adrenaline thing, right? When he stops the car,
Right,
he's
when he stops the fucking car.
I had a burst of adrenaline. It's a perfectly normal explanation, and it satisfies all your scientific needs.
When that maniac drives that, what was that guy doing in that van?
Yeah, I don't know. The car accident seems completely unmotivated. It's like,
Yes. I guess the idea is that he's just a shitty high school kid who's driving. Of course, everybody in this movie is, 30. Everybody in high school, but that's not
pretty young.
That's not like a hot take.
Well,
yeah,
he was-
I don't know. Anna Kendrick, how old? I don't know. I don't know these people's ages.
He was 30 yesterday, like a week
Now.
ago.
Okay, so they're probably in their 20s. Yeah.
They definitely were.
Okay.
He would have been 18 in that movie, roughly.
Oh.
Yeah, he would have been about the age.
Wow.
Yeah. And none of them, just their faces and their bodies, they're still definitely young. Like they don't have the.
Yeah, they're young.
They haven't like filled out into full adulthood yet.
I guess.
Are you saying
This is a weird conversation.
You know how
I don't know, man.
Do you know how? I mean, you like. I don't know how to say this without being.
I don't look at a lot of high schoolers.
I know, but like, there's a certain. How do I say this without it being gross? Like, people.
There's
just,
a baby face aspect.
Yeah, people fill out. Their bodies fill out after like college and stuff, so that they have. Like,
sure.
These all these kids seem pretty like young, skinny. Like they're all pretty young. They didn't have there was nobody walking around with like.
I don't know. I assume Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson are fairly old in this. I
don't think they are.
They got to do some weird. They got to do some sexy stuff. So they got to be.
They have to be 18. Yes.
Yeah.
They have to be 18. But
I don't know. This all very much disturbs me now that I think about it.
I'm sorry, man, but Robert Pattinson's 34 now, so he would have been 22 then.
Okay, so they're all in their early 20s.
Yeah, they're all in that right in college. They're probably all college
doing
students.
romance stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
exactly. Where you all look like baby-faced kids. Anyway, apologies if I have offended with my.
Well, who are you gonna offend?
I don't know. I don't know.
Offended?
Sometimes you're sensitive, Dave. Sometimes you get a little sensitive.
Who, me? You're apologizing to me?
I know it was a mistake. I don't know why I'm wasting our time with that.
Okay.
I don't know why I'm wasting our time.
Okay.
So look. Okay. Anyway, I don't know why the car accident happened. It definitely seemed very
What a deviation.
It really did. And I have a feeling I'm going to be like, oh, God, I wish you'd have cut it.
Look, I can cut it. I just don't want to.
You decide later. And if I get a bunch of hate mail, hate tweets, then, we'll know that we have to change things. I know. From all those Twilight stans who've been waiting on the internet for 12 years for something like this, where finally they can come to their defense of their beloved franchise. I don't know. Anyway, that high school is weird because it's conflict-free except for the one guy who can't drive.
Right.
It is insane that nobody knew those people were vampires. That's totally crazy. I also don't understand how they could ever register for school as anything other than juniors or seniors. You know what I mean? Since they're like frozen at 17, like I don't know how.
Well, I assume they fake their age.
Right, but you couldn't fake the age down to like 13. Like they could never be freshmen.
Well, they said they'd been there for a couple years. So they start at like 15-ish.
But you don't believe that. Come on. You know what I mean? It's like some of his vampire cohorts look like they're like college linebackers.
Right. This is is the hard thing. This is the movie thing where it's like I don't know how old these people are supposed to look because they're all in their 20s. in real life, or at least like some of them are. So it's just it's movie rules where I'm like, I don't know how old these people are supposed to look.
I thought this did a pretty good job of keeping it young enough that they passed to even a critical eye. And movies have gotten better about this in the last like 15, 20 years, where they actually they cast a little closer to the age. And don't cast, Beverly Hills 90210. Like, we're not in that situation.
Right. Oh, man.
Yeah, that's the all-time worst casting for high school.
Right. Not only... All right, here's the thing about the high school, about them all being into her.
Great.
I would argue that the entire town is excited about her presence.
They're like, oh,
when
you're
she
the
goes
new
to that
girl.
diner, they're like gonna throw a fucking parade for her.
Right, why?
Like, she's the talk of the fucking town.
I get it, 3,000 people. That means a 17-year-old girl who's displaced to live with her father, who probably didn't want her till just now.
Let me tell you,
is the only thing going on in that town.
Yeah, let me tell you, I'm originally from a small town.
Okay.
Probably same population. I don't know.
As Forks, Washington?
As Forks. Why'd they call the town Forks? Why would you call a town Forks? And the thing about small towns is that they have a lot of towns around them, right?
Yeah.
So, like, unless you're in like, the middle of Kentucky, and it's the idea where it's like you have to drive 45 minutes for a Walmart kind of thing. In the Pacific Northwest, like, they were going to other towns in the thing. They're going out to eat. It's a pretty nice area, and it reminded me a little bit of like where I grew up. And like when you get to high school, it's no longer that small. Like, my elementary school class was like 13 kids.
That's pretty small.
I get that.
Yeah, that's pretty small.
Yeah, but when you get to that age, it's like you can drive.
So you can
it's
go
not
fucking
small
anywhere,
anymore.
right?
Yeah, and it's my point is that like even the adults were really interested, and it's like people in small towns don't, like, I don't know, they don't do that.
Well,
I don't think
if you're expecting Hollywood to respect a small town,
it's
true.
Like,
good,
right?
Good luck.
They really acted like she was like, wow, a new person. Oh my god! And it's like, Jesus Christ.
That's
what
why.
do you like? What do you think these people are doing all day with their lives?
Like, honestly, this franchise could end with like the last 14 minutes of Mulholland Drive, where she's just like looking up into the ceiling, and then all of a sudden she wakes up and she's like, just a waitress in Los Angeles or something, and just hungover, and all the people who she thought were hot were actually movie stars, and they fucking hate her guts. And
can we get into Twilight yet?
Dave, of course we can.
Okay.
Who am I to stop us?
Sorry, the idea that this is all in her head, it just reminded me of something else in her head. Can you explain to me why this movie has narration?
I can't explain to you. No, I can't, but also I can't explain why the narration says what it says.
Right. At one point, all right. They go up into he gives her the piggyback ride to Sparkle Mountain. Right. And he says to her, like, he literally says, I wrote this line. He said, I wanted to kill you. I never wanted a human's blood more in my life.
Right.
And she replies with, I trust you.
I trust you. Right. Right. Because
are you not listening to him?
Right. Her absolute fastened on confidence that this person is trustworthy, and that she needs to be with him, and is completely baffling. It boggles the mind.
I also loved when he sparkles, and it's like he acts like he's taken off his Phantom of the Opera mask. He's like, "This is what I am."
Right. He also, by the way,
like a magic unicorn man. What do you? Yeah.
And he unbuttoned his shirt, which he did not need to do in order to show us the thing. And the line is one of my favorite fucking lines in any movie, because she says it in the most deadpan way. She's like, "You're absolutely beautiful. It's like you're made of diamonds.
Yeah.
It's like you're made of diamonds." That's It's like you're made of diamonds. Oh my god,
it's so good.
My fucking my soul cried when I heard that, Dave.
So
I could not believe it. Holy shit.
So he does the super climb. He shows his super duper vampire's powers. He says he really wants to drink her blood. And then they have a romantic scene where they like lie in the woods, which I wouldn't recommend. Like you get all sorts of shit on you that way.
Yeah, it doesn't stay romantic for very long.
Right. And then after that, she goes home and the narration kicks up and says about 3 things I was absolutely positive. First, Edward was a vampire.
Right.
Second, there was part of him that thirsted for my blood. And third, I was in love with him. And I was like, yeah, no shit. You just showed those 3 things in the previous scene.
I couldn't help but wonder, am I into a vampire or am I turning into a trampire? And then the rest of the Sex and the City intro plays. Right. Really stupid.
It was so, every narration was like that. You'd see the scene and then she'd say what was in the scene.
Right.
What you just saw. And it was like, I don't think there's any moment where the narration needs to be in the movie.
Even the very first line, which is like I never think about how I'm going to die or something like that. But if I did, standing in the place of someone I love, it seems like a good way to go. Yeah. Is like, okay, I'm going to guess that somewhere in the 5th movie, this is going to hang together in some sort of Jesus narrative because that's what they're setting up. But boy, is it a stupid way to introduce this movie. Like, it just was like, what? That is way too complicated for a single movie. Like, get fucking real, you know? Like, this is a high school love drama, you know? That's the other thing.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry. So this is the thing that now I'm going to turn into an old father, like, just immediately. Okay. No one ever questions whether their love is real. Nobody questions it. Nobody says, hey, are you sure? You just met the guy. You're 17.
Here's what okay.
Right?
Yes. Well, all right. First of all, I think the father is just like, whatever. She likes boys. Like, it's why question it? He doesn't know she's in love with him.
But then
his family,
the behavior at once the hospital situation gets involved, the dad, as a cop, has to start putting his hands around the situation just a little bit.
I wrote down what their cover story was because she gets attacked by the vampire at the end. What's his name? James.
I fucking forget.
Like the greatest hunter ever, right. James. I have questions about James. Remind me to ask questions about James.
Sure. Not that I'm going to be able to answer him.
But James bites her arm. It almost turns her into a vampire. Edward has to suck her off to get the venom off. He
doesn't know if he can stop.
Because apparently vampires are the same as rattlesnakes. Yes. I didn't realize that.
I didn't know that either. I didn't know that venom was involved at all in vampiredom.
She wakes up at the hospital and her mom's there, and she says, I heard what happened. Edward and his dad came to get you, and you fell down 2 flights of stairs and out a window.
Right. And it's like, that's a hell of a trip.
It's the funniest visual. And at the same time, wouldn't they be like, so did you assaulted her?
Right.
Didn't you?
It's like, so.
Because that's the excuse of someone who assaulted somebody else.
Use a classic line from a domestic violence abuse situation to disguise your vampire
2 flights of stairs and out a window. Yeah. And they show it. They show it like it's a flashback for some reason.
Yes, they did. As though we wouldn't understand that it was a lie or what they were saying.
Doesn't that make you question if it's a lie? Because then
No. This movie... This movie's not sophisticated enough to have unreliable narrator, from what I can tell. I wish that it was, because that would make me much more interested in it.
But then why are they showing it? Because it makes it feel like an unreliable narrator.
Because I believe they thought it was too complicated to just be explained, and it was more interesting to see it. Just like when
they're like, audiences want to see this chick get hucked down some stairs. We better put it in there.
Listen, you got to show not tell. You got to show not tell. You can't just mention it.
No, you do both. Yeah. You do both. That's what they do this whole movie.
Then after you showed it, you tell them.
Yeah,
I agree. That is a real problem here. It's a baffling explanation.
Going back to their relationship, what is going on? All right, here's from not if I didn't know there were more movies, I would assume that Edward is a weird old pervert because he's like 100 years old. He's Spanish flu-aged, who likes to go to high schools and find a chick to hook up with for like a couple years before the family inevitably moves along. At the end when she's like, make me a vampire, and he gives her a little kiss, and he's like, you're great, champ.
Right.
I was just like, oh, he doesn't want to spend eternity with her, does
No.
he? Because he's 100 years old. He lives in a single room and pretends to be a teenager. Do you remember enjoying being a teenager?
I've blocked those years out entirely almost.
Right.
No.
If you were 100 years old, would you want to share a house with like 5 other people and have nothing for yourself? Have a bookcase of records?
That is incredibly short-sighted to think that they all need to live in a house. I can't understand
Why do
that.
they have a family parental relationship? The parents are like, now, kids, and it's like, motherfucker, I'm 100.
Right. Why, yeah,
Like,
why are they still
you're
doing it?
slightly older than
Right.
me. Yeah.
Right.
Why are they doing it privately?
Yeah, like I understand as a facade it makes sense, but like
Yeah. But if when he's like, this is where we could be ourselves at this home, I was expecting them to just be like, hey, what's up, man? And
Right.
like just be like
roommates.
friends.
Yeah, be like roommates.
Yeah.
You know, like somebody sipping a beer or
But-
whatever, somebody talking in the TV room. I totally understand.
But why would they even live together? I wouldn't live with that. Like 100 years. I would at least have something other than a single room. But he's just like he acts like a teenager.
Right. That is the worst piece of writing so far is the way he's conceived.
Is he a part of a vampire cult? Is what happened is, did the Cullen father bite these people and say, you're my kid now, and just sort of kept them in this like state of adolescence?
Well,
where they
are you asking what the movie says, or are you positing theories?
I'm positing
Okay, sure.
theories. Is
Great.
this Twilight?
Great. I'm sorry. Forgive me, Dave.
I don't know if this is Twilight. Or is the idea that when you're bit, you maintain some level of your brain at that age you were bit?
I mean, dude, the vampire logic is so convoluted that I could easily see her saying, well, they were 17 when they were bit, their brain stays that way. Sure, if we're accepting that vampires use venom, then sure.
Right.
If we're accepting that they're both highly sophisticated and they turn into literal sharks the minute that they smell blood, they turn into fucking great white sharks.
Yeah,
You know, if that's the conceit, then okay. But like, it seems to me like there's no real reason why Edward would not have a series of blood bag women. Like, why wouldn't they all have that? They'd all have like a blood boy or a blood girl.
The idea is that they're vegetarians, as they put it.
Yeah, but
they don't like eating humans, and I think having a blood bag is part of the they don't like hurting humans.
But like then they also can't love humans. If they can't suck the blood of a willing human, then they also can't love a human. That's got to be part of the philosophical
so what you're telling
problem.
me is if you fell in love with a vampire and they were like, will you be my blood bag? Would you do it?
Yeah.
I'd be like, fuck that, make me a vampire.
Well, that's what she says.
I want in your little pyramid scheme here.
But I feel like
make me a vampire.
Right. And that seems like the obvious thing, but that's why she says that, right? But I feel like the second tier beneath that, the mistress version of dating a vampire is blood bag. Be a blood bag.
See, I wouldn't need to either until it's like a few years in.
Oh no,
at
you're not
least.
just running into blood bag
that's,
status.
Like that's the thing is that Edward, when she's like, make me a vampire, he's probably been asked that
of course.
like 70 other times.
Yeah, every high school.
And knows and he knows it doesn't work out. And he knows that like the moment they live a little longer, they're like, well, I want to go to college, and then I want to do this, and I want to do that, like everybody does. They're young,
which is why he's probably like, look, go get an internship, like maybe get into a 4-year college, try it live it in the dorms, just live in the dorms.
I think he just doesn't want to be tied down. I think he's just like,
live
look,
with anybody? Why not live like a lonely feral vampire?
I think for him, he's like, look, I'm not going to turn you into a vampire, but I'll spend like 60 years with you. Sure,
60 years,
and then you die, and I can move on to the next thing.
That's the worst of all the worlds, is it not?
I don't know, man.
This is
I've talked about this many times with like Thor and Spock. There are these characters like Spock in Star Trek. He lives like to be like 600 or something.
Right.
And he always talks about Captain Kirk like he was my best friend, and it was like he lived the equivalent age of a dog for you. He's a pet. And that's what Bella would be, right?
Yeah.
Is like not even. She's like a hamster.
Eventually, she's
in his
a
life.
Eventually, she's a blip on the radar if he lives long enough. But like, look, so if you're a vampire like Robert Pattinson and you survived the Spanish influenza, which is an amazing time to just be referenced right now and watch this stupid movie.
Yeah.
So like, what he's agreeing to do is, at least from a shitty guy point of view, is the worst version. Because like, if you want to make a big commitment to somebody, then make them a vampire. That's number one. If you want to just use it, and if you want to use them and dispose
Also,
of them,
you can
then,
always break up with them after you make them a vampire, but they also probably might get very angry where they're like, motherfucker, you made me a vampire.
right. But that's where it's like, look, you said you agreed to do this and blah, blah, you know what I mean? Like, as long as it was consensual, it's like, look, unless there's a vampire court or something, like in True Blood, it's like, what are you going to do?
Sure.
But again, like, living 60 years with a person, watching them grow old and die, and sort of eventually becoming numb to the life cycle of human beings, for the sake of having a human relationship that is not eternal, is insane. Like, I can't understand that. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I just can't understand that.
Which is why I think that he's thinking in a few years they'll just go to a new high school.
Right.
And he does this every fucking high school.
Right.
Like a weird old creep.
Right. That does
Because
make
again,
the most
she's
sense.
a high schooler, he's 100. It's weird. It's fucking weird. And again, he's got like a Michael Jackson thing going where it's like he kind of acts young, and then he's or at least the accusations of Michael Jackson.
Well,
I never looked into Michael Jackson stuff.
No, it's as bad as you think it is. But like, I'm gonna step back just a little bit from the Michael Jackson precipice because that's a much thornier issue.
I got Jackson vibes off of him because he acts like a high schooler, but he's not.
Right.
And that was the whole Neverland Ranch thing where it was like, you never have to grow up. And that's what he has. He has his own Neverland Ranch where he's like, I have my own room and okay, mom and dad, I'll do what you say. And I'm going to date this high school girl. And it's like, you are fucking 100.
Right.
Like, what is wrong with you, Edward? What is this? What are you doing?
I just like
you're 21. Say you're not in high school. Why would you graduate high school again and again? What kind of fucking weirdos are these?
Right, he doesn't need
vampires?
to be 17. He could totally say he was 19.
Yeah. They're all weirdos.
Yeah.
They're driving in that Jeep,
right.
and his brother is like standing out that Jeep. Like, remember when he's standing out the skylight, and he's just stoically standing there?
Yes, he is.
And he's like, what the fuck are you doing? Yeah. They go out and play baseball? Who the fuck does that?
But they don't play baseball. They play like the fucking Twilight equivalent of Quidditch. Like, that's what they're doing.
It's super baseball.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's absurd. So, no, the vampires don't make any fucking sense. This whole movie only makes sense as the point of view of Bella. Like, that's all it is. It's only her point of view. It's the only way it hangs together. Like, you take any other person's point of view, it doesn't make sense. Like, imagine the movie from the point of view of her dad. It doesn't make any sense there. He's like one of the worst cops in the world because he can't tell if a dead body's been made by an animal or not.
Yeah, apparently that's really up in the air.
What are they teaching in fucking police academy up there?
Well, okay, it's because it's vampire attacks, so I assume they're tearing the bodies up. Like, they're ripping their throats out.
Sure, so, like, they don't have forensics guys?
I don't know. I don't know how vampire forensics works.
Well, I can tell you how animal forensics works. They have somebody over there to figure out what kind of fucking animal it was.
Yeah, it's a real X-file he has on his hands.
Right. And what you know what you do when you get an X-file? You call someone else to handle it.
Yes, that's true. You call
check in
Mulder
on
and
it.
Scully. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, come on, like, he's just letting that shit lie. And, like, he's a cop, and all I can say is, Dave, as the son of a cop, I don't know a single cop in the world who's being hands off with his young daughter, the child of divorce. I don't know a single cop doing that.
Who's doing what now?
Who's like living like hands off with his daughter like she's a roommate.
Yeah, he's very well. She says it. She says in her narration, the best thing about him is he doesn't hover. It's like, after we see that he doesn't hover.
Then let me tell you what he isn't: a cop. That's the opposite of how cops work.
Isn't it the point of him is that he lost her mother because she didn't want to live in the town, and he might, I don't know, he seems like he maybe has depression, or is there something up with him?
He's got something going on. I can just tell you, though, man.
And so I think the idea is now that his daughter's there, he doesn't want to screw it up. This is what makes the dynamic good, is he doesn't want to screw it up, and he's just trying to be as... I bet he was like too clingy with the mom, maybe, and he's trying to not be that guy. That's the impression I got. Yes. He was trying to be something.
Yes. All of that hangs together, except, and I'm going to tell you need to hear me on this, Dave.
Okay.
That is so unlikely from a police officer, because that is the opposite of what it takes to become a police officer and to stay a police officer. My dad, who was one of the nicest cops I know, like my dad would get involved anytime he smelled anything that was like, what the hell is this? Like my dad, one time when I started dating somebody, took me into the garage and he said, all right, so if you get her pregnant, here are the things that are going to happen. And he just like listed all these things that would happen. That were all these like consequences and like financial repercussions. And he's like, so you better think about that. And like, that was like, he saw me out with a woman at like once in high school. You know what I mean? And he wasn't he wasn't being a prick. I'm just telling you, that's how it is, you know?
Have you considered that you were naturally a shifty looking kid? And it wasn't the cop thing. It was just that you always looked so suspicious.
I kept shoving things into pockets all the time. Just always shoving a thing into a pocket.
Looked squinted and looked back and forth.
Yeah. It's true.
I know what you're saying is that he doesn't have that. That's why I got the impression that he had like almost like that's why I got the impression that he had like burned his bridges.
Well, he
made
a mistake. Right.
Yeah, that he had no authority to do that with her. He had lost that authority and he wanted it back, but it's I think that's the idea, is like
credibility.
It's like a share. Yeah.
He lost
and
credibility.
So like he knows he has no fucking place to question it. He really wants to. He keeps giving her pepper spray.
He keeps bringing it up.
Which, by the way,
didn't work.
He says, I gave you a fresh can of pepper spray.
Yeah.
That means that when she, quote unquote, fell down some stairs and through a window, she also lost her pepper spray.
It flew off her body. You just like the pepper spray's got to fly free, Dave. It's got to get free.
That is so like he would have gone to Edward's house and like stuck a pillow over his face and tried to shoot him.
Yes,
and then learned he was a vampire, because it's that part at least. It's very obvious that something happened to her.
That's what I mean.
Again, the story is from the cop's perspective, because I have a lot of questions. First of all, why did she go to her house and tell her dad a bunch of mean things?
Because she thought that she knew the vampire could overhear her. And so the vampire was supposed to believe that the father's no longer a place to track her down.
Okay.
And therefore would leave him alone. That's the idea. Right?
Okay.
It's
but
confusing.
Can't the vampire hear them make those plans?
Well, they made the plans in a car on the road there, being surrounded by other vampires. And at that point, I'm just guessing there's a sort of vampire white noise problem. You know what I mean?
Okay,
like,
you're really doing the work,
Dave,
for the movie.
Dave, what the fuck you want me to do? This is where we are. Yeah. This is what I have to do. I don't understand why that vampire is so set on getting her.
Well, I want to talk about him in a second. But all I just wanted to point out is the timeline of her. She pretends to break up with Edward.
Right.
Goes to her dad and says, I'm leaving.
Right.
And then the plot is Edward and his dad go to convince her to come back. And then in that process, she loses her pepper spray and falls out a window.
Yes, that's
and it's
correct.
like, okay, you assaulted her. Vampire James. So they establish him as like a tracker. They all have powers.
Right, they all are vampires, but then they have their own like unique little sparkle. They all have a special
Potter.
sparkle.
One of them can see the future and also pitch really cool. She can pitch balls really cool and see the future.
She can. Worst haircut.
The dad has doctor powers. One imagines. I don't know. How does he go all day without drinking? Oh, that's what he's doing. What a fucking hypocrite!
He's making vampire families. That's what he's doing.
Well, no, he's pulling from his work. Like he's doing doctor stuff and then licking his hands afterwards.
Oh yeah. He's got little blood bags in there. He's taking side nips all the time.
Yeah.
Just
Why isn't he bringing his family blood bags?
Dude, it boggles the mind. It's like
it's all right. It's just so hypocritical
right,
because
of
it's
course.
like
How can he
it's
be
like
a doctor? He couldn't.
it's like raising your family vegetarian, but working at like a barbecue ribs place and secretly eating the ribs.
Right.
It's like motherfucker.
Well, what they want us to believe is that he works at like the best rib house in the state where they're just handing them out, and he's not eating them.
No, he's drinking, at least drinking some blood bags.
Of course. There. And once he drinks a blood bag, then all bets are off in the Collins Club.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
I mean?
Then it's
like,
a fucking. He's a maniac.
He comes home with some O positive on his lips. There's all kinds of hell to pay in that house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so they all have powers, and James's power. James, the like dirtbag vampire.
Right.
Like I loved there was like this beautiful woman and this guy with dreads, and then this like dirtbag looking guy, and they're like, that's James, and he's just like he looks like a drug dealer.
Yeah.
And they
he was definitely a drifter before he was a vampire.
Yeah.
Like his tracker skills are just he had to live on the road before he became a vampire. Yeah. So he learned a way. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, his power is the hunt.
Right.
And now you've made the hunt more challenging for him because you're a vampire.
Right.
And then they show him running through the woods. This is my favorite fucking thing. He's running through the woods, and they're like, they take Bella's jacket and they give him a false scent.
Yeah, sure.
Scent. So he's running through the woods and he catches on and he runs away. So when they're talking about hunt and tracking, you imagine like animal like tracking.
Right. Like smells and tracks.
Yeah. Then he just calls her and says, I kidnapped your mom, come here. And I was like, what kind of hunting shit is that?
Well,
I could do that.
Yeah, that didn't take a lot of brains to think of it either.
Right.
I have a hard time with the idea of this vampire sort of having sport with his food, because to me it's like just because you eat people doesn't make you like into a monster cannibal. You know what I mean? Like why doesn't he just like snap at her neck and eat? Like why are we doing this whole villain monologue thing with a vampire? That just doesn't feel like a thing they would do. Am I wrong about that? Like, since it's food, it's literally food.
I'm saying it makes you a monster cannibal to eat people as a vampire, right?
I mean, I think that's what the movie wants me to assume, because eating people is evil, quote unquote.
This is what I'm getting at, though. Is they say he likes to track his food, right?
Right.
So I would get it if he wants to play with his food in the sense that he wants to hunt her down like a monster,
right?
Like beyond like come out of the shadows and scrap
like an assassin.
But he does like a villain in a thriller move.
Right.
That's what's so weird about it. He might as well take out a gun and be like, well, and like just kidnap her. Like, he doesn't do it in a vampire way. He tells her that he's kidnapped her mother and to come meet her at where she used to do ballet, which fucked if I know why he did that.
Like, how did he know about it? Right?
Yeah, it's like Act 3 in like an Ashley Judd thriller.
Yes. The mirrors thing was very like, are we supposed to believe she doesn't know which one he is?
Right.
That's stupid.
That didn't amount to anything. But it's just so weird to build him up like that. And then it's like if in Bloodsport they're like, that guy's the biggest fighter, and then he took out a gun and shot somebody. And it's like, well, yeah, I guess if he does that.
Well, I can't understand why she wouldn't have called Edward.
Because she thought he kidnapped her mom. But I was thinking, like, yeah, just have your vampire friends and say he kidnapped my mom. Can you use your vampire powers?
Well, it's like he has to wait at a place. You know what the place is. It's going to take you a little time to get there. It's plenty of time for vampires to get there.
And thanks for Edward just stalking her all the time. It doesn't matter. And he and his friends show up and they gang beat that fucking vampire and tear him up.
Yes, they did. And then burn him alive.
It's real dark.
I thought It was fine. I didn't think that was that big of a deal.
I thought it was, I thought it was great. Well, no, because it's happening in the background, and they do this thing where she's like, he's like being like, no one's gonna hurt you ever again. And he's like trying to talk romantically to her, and her eyes keep like drifting behind him to his family doing something that is very violent.
Right, like there's a moment where they imply that they twist his head off or to break his neck, and then he's still screaming, and then they burn him alive.
Yeah, and as much as I didn't like the villain vampire plot, I like that aspect of it, which is that like they're all happy-go-lucky and they're like, welcome to our family. We're gonna support you, make you dinner, even though we don't know you and we've lived hundreds of years. And this seems like it just seems like a bad idea.
Of course, how could there possibly not be like a dusty old tome where they all agreed to, this is the way we're going to do this vampire thing as a family.
Right.
Rule number one, don't fall in love. Rule number two, like if you end up murdering somebody, dispose of the body. Here are the ways that get away with shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's stuff like, it's like just basic contract stuff.
Right. But I did like, I liked that. I liked that they were so like supportive and nice, and then you have this moment where you see them be absolutely fucking like ghouls,
right?
And you realize like, oh right, they're still vampires,
right?
But
in the long arc of the series, I feel like we're gonna love them, and then think, oh, they're actually evil, and then like they might redeem themselves. Like I think that's where we're going.
Yeah, in the context of what they do about Bella, here's my assumption: is that they're all paired up,
right?
I'm guessing a lot of them weren't vampires until recently. There's that one guy who's just becoming a vegetarian where they're like, you have to excuse him.
Yeah.
So I think what they do is they travel around. If one of them gets into a relationship, they're like, that's great. We'll be very supportive. And if it goes somewhere, you can make her a vampire. And if it doesn't, we'll slit her throat and put her in a ditch.
Right. We'll all feed. It'll be our one cheat night.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we'll leave her dried up husk under a flower bed someplace.
Exactly.
And no one will be the wiser. We'll spend the day sparkling.
Yeah, we'll sparkle. Be sparkling. What does kill them? It's apparently tearing them apart and burning them.
Fire.
I mean, that kills everybody.
Right. Well, it works on them, we know. Other than that, I'm not sure. I would have said sunlight, but they seem very
you see their
to...
reflection.
Right. Yes.
Maybe wooden stake. I thought when they were splintering up the ballet recital dance room that we were going to get a stake.
Yeah, I thought
action.
So too. I thought they were going to drive it in his heart, but I'm going to guess that we're going to find out the werewolves have specific things that can kill them.
Yeah.
Like silver fangs or some shit.
Or ripping them apart.
It turns out you rip a vampire apart, he dies.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine, I guess. Do you think we're going to find out, just switching gears a little bit to the werewolves that we don't know yet, do we think we're going to find out that the grandfather's wheelchair thing is either related to the vampires or a facade?
I think there's going to be something there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's either of those. I don't think we'll see I could see maybe just, I don't even know what. I don't know. I have no idea. I assume what's going to happen is we're going to see werewolf stuff, and then Bella's going to be scared of the werewolves, and then like one of them will get hurt, or she'll put something together where she'll be like, it's you.
Right. I mean, it seems pretty clear that her and Jacob have to have there's got to be a smooch by Ep 3's end, right?
Yeah. I don't know. All right. Here's the thing. Everything I said about Edward being a pedophile creep.
Sure.
Jacob's not. All right, he is better unless we find out he's 1,000 years old.
Right. Then we have
he's
the same
better
problem.
because he's also a teenager.
Right.
But he's a real creep too. He just stares at her a lot. The part where he says, "I have a message from my dad." He lurches out of the woods.
Yes, he does.
He's just like, "Hey, Bella," and it's like, "Duh, God, what are you doing?" He's just like in the woods.
It's like the woods fucking vomited him out to speak to her.
And then he's like, "I have to tell you, my dad paid me to tell you to not date this guy anymore." And it was like, what the fuck?
And she doesn't like. She's like, okay, deliver the message, as though this is like as though she's instantly assimilated into like fairy rules or something.
Right? She's just like, cool. I hope you get paid. As if this isn't And I'm saying this knowing what she's been through, as if this isn't the weirdest thing that's happened to her in a while. Like, it's just like, what the fuck was that?
Well, how can she be so short-sighted about that when they were the ones that gave her the clue to vampires being a thing?
Right.
Like,
and
they're the ones that turned her on to it. So how can she be so standoffish with them about, hey, don't date that guy, he's a maniac, when he's also saying it?
Right.
Like, listen, I'm a maniac.
She's not...
Once a moon, he gets black eyes, and he just like can't stand the smell of her, you know? So that's nice.
Is this a world... Is she not the brightest bulb? Or is it
hard to say?
Or, well, because she has to Google vampires to learn what a vampire is. And I was like, how? Maybe that's why no one at the school is like, these people are clearly vampires.
Right.
Because maybe in this world, vampires aren't that, like, popular. We don't know about them. The Anne Rice books don't exist in this world, you know?
It's hard for me to accept any horror movie where they come to the term for this... When they come to a term like mummy or vampire or whatever, which is like, okay, so we all know, like... It's a shorthand for what we all know, but then they also have to Google search it. Like those two things don't add.
Yeah. Well, no, like the concept still exists, but not the pop culture. Like it's, you know, it's like in zombie movies. There'll be two kinds of zombie movies. One where they're like, what is happening? The dead is rising, and then there's others where people are like, these are zombies.
Right.
And I think in both worlds, it's in our culture. It's just not in our like movies. In one world.
I think usually in zombie movies where they know the word zombie, zombie movies exist.
Yes,
like it's
that's what I'm saying. Yes, you're right. Is that they say it by name.
Right.
Yeah.
In this case, it's like she learned some ancient Sanskrit word. It's called vampire.
Yeah.
You know, but that's clearly not what it is. I don't know. It's convoluted, like everything else. I don't know how to get mad about that specific thing. Whereas I can be furious for years at the baseball game. Like I can.
Yeah,
like,
we have talked enough about the baseball game.
What is? Like, I don't understand how they're playing baseball. There's not even 9 of them. It's like
okay.
They
people
just hit
play
a
half court. People play catch. Like they're just playing the baseball they know how to play.
But wait, Dave. I'm sorry. I understand.
I'm sure they're going to eat enough like they're going to make it more vampires, and they'll have a better game.
Well,
I was just waiting for a stray ball to brain Bella.
Yes,
and then there's just be like,
hole in her head.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And that's where we learn one of them can vomit new body parts onto actual human beings. Like that's their special talent.
That's their power.
You know, like that's what the doctor actually does. He has no idea what he's doing medically, but he can vomit new body parts, like a stem cell research center. But yeah, I don't know.
How many people on a team?
Well, how many people do they have there total? Is it like 7? And she's the ump.
She's the ump. So it's 3-on-3.
Right. So they have a pitcher, a hitter, and then like 2 guys standing in the outfield somewhere. One of the outfielders is just there to cheer for Edward. The other one is Edward, whose job is to throw to a catcher at home. So essentially, a vampire can either get a home run or an out. That's all that can happen in vampire baseball.
Yeah, I think so. I think
so. Like what?
Yeah, because they don't have enough runners. Wait, do they have enough runners? If it's 3-on-3,
well, they don't have any basemen. Like if you're playing,
well, no,
baseball,
they're going to. Okay, hold on. They're doing vampire speed, so you can assume that they're like, it's like the new Sonic the Hedgehog movie where he's playing baseball against himself.
I haven't seen that abomination, but sure.
But the idea is they're super fast and strong, so they can cover more area.
Right, I get it. I understand that. It's just, but again, logistically, because that's true of everybody on that field except for the ump, they really only have a catcher covering all the bases, which means you can literally only hit a home run or an out. Those are the only things you can get in vampire baseball. Yes. Which means it's basically fucking cricket. It's cricket.
Well, look, it's not... I mean, this isn't Major League Vampire Baseball. I'm sure if they had more vampires, they would enjoy... I'm more baffled about why they enjoy baseball.
Yes, I think that's also very confusing. I don't understand either thing. Why is it baseball? I don't know.
It's very weird.
It's like some family from like Croatia or something is like, we're going to be very into baseball. Like we're going to blend right in with the Americans. Like they just moved
but they
here.
have to do it secretly because the baseball hits sound like thunder.
Right. So it's like Borat trying to do baseball, but in his basement. And you're like,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's like, why is that happening?
Why is that scene happening?
Yeah,
I think it's because it was in the book, and I think it's because the author of the book was like, I think it'd be cool if vampires played baseball.
I think it's because the author's like, I have to have a Quidditch. If I don't have a Quidditch, this isn't like Harry Potter. That's
Well, then
exactly
make up
why.
a Quidditch. Don't put fucking baseball in
But
it.
it's in America, bro. That's you know what I
Right.
mean. Like it's
Wait, are
just
you saying the
much
British
lazier.
have their own, like, is Quidditch real in England?
Yes. Did you not know? Yeah.
They do
There's a real
Quidditch?
golden snitch. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think Quidditch is supposed to be the wizard version of cricket. Like that's why they have like paddles and like I think it's supposed to be similar to that.
It's extremely British.
Right. There's like
Quidditch.
weird rules that are sort of like. Sorry, I should wait till that car is passed.
I'm not hearing no car at.
Oh, okay. Well, there was a gigantic truck just
I
powering
believe
its
you.
way through my life.
I believe you.
So it's they have weird like contradictory and like duplicative rules and stuff. It feels very British in that way, but it's not. It's not like it's definitely not supposed to imitate a known game. Like it's
What
close to
would've-
soccer. It's
Okay.
between soccer and cricket.
What would the American version of Quidditch be? It's not baseball.
No, it'd be football mixed with basketball.
Yeah.
It'd be like a sport in which like they all have super speed and strength, and so like they have to like dunk an oblong ball through a gigantic hoop that's like half a mile in the air. You know what I mean? It's something like that.
yeah.
And it takes place over like the entire state of Wyoming because I got nothing else going on in there.
Right. And I think you still
You
have
know?
to put, like, maybe someone's hitting baseballs at them while they're doing it.
Yeah, or they're just getting shot at by literal tanks. Like it's just like they just line up military equipment and people are just shooting shit at them while they're trying to dodge it and score.
We
Feels
need
very
we
American.
need more. Yeah, we need more tanks in sports.
Oh, way more. We have far too few tanks.
It could just be the movie Real Steel. That feels like American Quidditch. Although that is international.
It could. Well, but
Also,
we still
what
made
society builds robots and then says, let's make them box?
it. I'm gonna just arguing from all the anime I've seen. Japan would do that.
Okay. But it's a world. Like, we made these robots and we're like, I know what these are good for.
Boxing.
Boxing.
Yeah, boxing. Another current sport.
Yeah.
Another sport everyone's dying to watch.
Yeah. What a fucking, like, good God.
Right. Sometimes this is when you realize that like old people are really in charge of movies. This
Yeah.
is when you realize like the people who greenlight movies are actually much older than you think they are because they're really latched on to things. They're like boxing.
Right.
Nobody
but also just
watches
sports.
boxing.
You have robots. Do you,
Right.
like, use them to, like, fight wars or
Right.
explore space or, I don't know, jump in?
build complex systems and computers, whatever.
Yeah. Not boxing.
Use them to replace like mines.
Yeah.
Anybody doing mining? Let robots do that.
Let robots mine.
Yes. Hashtag bring back coal miners, but make them robots.
Yes.
You know,
That whole thing is a hashtag.
Yeah.
Or vampires. I bet vampires could get a lot done.
they'd be amazing in a coal mine. Can you
Yeah,
imagine?
we just feed them kids.
Oh yeah, you just pumping blood in,
Yep.
and out comes diamonds. Like
Yep.
their skin's
Exactly.
basically diamonds already. That's
Exactly.
Where they
It's a victimless system.
Yeah.
You just throw them kids and they eat the kids and then they get the diamonds.
feeding time, and then they just chuck a child down there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
We've solved a lot of problems with this Guylight section.
Are we still in Twilight? I have no
Sure.
fucking idea.
Sure, why not?
Okay.
We could be.
Should we get into the hold on, let me see if I have
Twilight.
other. Edward's saying he watches her sleep. That's red flag.
Well, does he do a single thing that is not a red flag? Like
That's a good
he's
point.
only
He has a
red flag.
series of red flags.
What I don't understand is
if a guy says I'm a vampire, that's a very big red flag.
Yeah,
because
I'd
that
say
means no,
take
he's
a
not a
break.
vampire. He's just a goth, and you stay away because he's a weird. He's one of them weird goths. Like he's not a
Right.
good goth.
Right.
He's the kind who says I'm a vampire.
Right. He's the guy who's going to try drinking blood with his friends one Saturday to really go the far distance.
Right.
Probably make him sick. He won't do it again, but he'll
He
think
probably
it's
does-
cool. He'll think
Right,
it's
he-
cool that he did that.
He probably does vampire LARPing, if
Oh,
anything.
yeah. Oh, yeah. He does vampire LARPing for sure.
And I guess if that's your thing, then more power to you.
Like, what's the
But-
minimum number of wigs he wears? What's the minimum number of wigs that guy owns if he says he's a vampire?
I was thinking more of series of top hats.
Okay. But I think either one. I think you got with either one.
Yeah,
it's
true.
minimum 5, right?
Minimum 5.
Yeah, that's a fucking lot of top hats. I
One
don't know
for every work day.
Yeah, one for every kind of formal top hat occasion, of which there are many in the vampire subculture.
Yeah,
which we are currently inventing.
yes.
He doesn't do anything but give red flags. I don't understand why he likes her. Do you understand why?
Because he's a weird pervert.
Right, but why her?
Well, because apparently he hears white noise when he tries to read her thoughts.
So it's just, but then again, that suggests that it's about conquest.
Yeah, here's my guess.
Yeah.
He's a weird pervert.
Right.
I think because he lusts for her, he's like more thirsty for her blood than anybody else's. The idea,
like it's blood without brains. I understand. It's got to taste like the sweetest treat.
Yeah, he's really into her blood. She smells great. They constantly talk about how she smells.
Yeah.
Another red light. So if you go to meet like your boyfriend's family and they're constantly talking about your smell and like the proximity in which they can smell you and how good you smell
or bad.
It's not good.
No, that's horrifying. That's the one thing in this movie. The one thing that I thought, oh, that's actually kind of clever. That her first interaction with him, because of her blood, he gets a smell vibe from her, and like that really, really upsets her, which I totally understand. Because in high school, everybody's worried about how they smell.
Right.
Like that's a thing. And like you're less worried about it as an adult.
Yeah, she thinks she's the smelly kid.
Right. And like it's a really embarrassing thing. And he's not cool about it. And I thought that was a good beat. Like I was like, oh shit, that's interesting and kind of clever.
Right, and it turns out she smells delicious, and that's why.
Yeah, and he can't help how delicious she smells.
Yeah. It's like he fell in love with a steak. A really good steak. And instead of eating the steak, he's going to fuck the steak.
Well, that brings up the next thing, which is they have the PG-13est relationship I've ever seen in my life. That he goes over to kiss her, but he can't handle it because it makes him hungry. So then
another red flag.
Right, that's weird. So he just stays there all night and like watches her sleep in like this sweet way, and it's like, so I'd understand.
Is it a sweet way?
I mean, I'm going to put "sweet" in quotes. Okay. So I'd understand. He is able to control his bloodlust. I got it. Is he also able to control his boner lust? Like, is that where we are now, or is he 100 years old and it's like he's seen so much and done so much that he can barely get it going anymore? Like, are we at that place?
He's probably fucked a lot, right?
Yeah. Are we at decades of porn addiction level of erection problems, or like where
maybe,
are we?
Maybe, and then he just smelled something that he really liked, so it's like a new fetish.
Right, but then like when it comes time to perform, he has some real anxiety or something. Like basically, what I'm saying is, do you think there's a way that this blood conversation, where he like can't like the blood is really just sort of covering his like self-consciousness about his boner? Is there any chance of that?
No. He can't get it up?
Yeah. He's 100 years old, Dave.
Then what is the point of any of this? Like, is he because?
Oh my God! That's the first time you asked that question. Holy shit, Dave. You're right. If he can't have sex with his underage girlfriend, what is the point of any of it, Dave?
No, because it's purely a physical attraction. He's never said 2 words to her.
Right.
And then he's like, I want her.
Right. For what reason?
So, well, either to eat her or to have some sort of weird, I don't know. It's very animalistic.
But but again, and I understand his bloodlust is sort of quote unquote standing in for sexual lust. I get that. But they're really blending it in together at times where it's confusing. Particularly when he breaks into her bedroom, it's like they're conflating the two like it's some kind of Caligula pleasure barge situation where it's like anytime he gets hungry, he gets a boner. Anytime he gets a boner, he feels hungry. And like the two things are like merged, like that Seinfeld episode with George Costanza where he's like eating the sandwiches and listening to the music and he's getting this one horrible urge he can't control anymore. Like what's going on is what I'm getting at. What the fuck is going on?
He's a weird pervert.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think Edward, he's got a lot to work out.
Well, clearly, that's what the 4 films are for, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing I can think of that they're for.
I don't know. I don't know, man.
I don't either.
I don't know what to expect at this point.
Oh, dude, I have no idea what the second movie could be other than... These are my predictions for it. The girl turns out to be... The girl being the villain vampiress turns out to be a bigger deal and a bigger bad than any of the other ones we've seen, and introduces a larger vampire world problem, like a la True Blood. That's my first guess.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And we actually meet the werewolf concept overtly, finally. That's movie 2. And by the end of movie 2, I'm going to guess that Bella has to break up with Edward.
Yeah, there's going to be some back and forth, right?
There has to be.
Okay, yeah, she breaks up with Edward. Jacob gets in on it. There's a war.
Yeah.
I assume she goes back to Edward in the end, and I think they have a baby together, and I assume she becomes a vampire.
Yeah.
And there's some larger thing
magic.
that happens.
Or she's magic and she can't be anything because she's a better thing than all vampires are. Like she could be she could be some other magic race, right? Like I don't know what else goes. You know what I mean? Like it sounds dumb,
Lizard.
but there's right, yeah, like super.
She could
lizard.
be the descendant of Van Helsing. Who the fuck knows?
She could be like a literal hunter descended from a. But her last name is Isabella Swan. Swan is her last name. Terrible name. So, do we derive? So I'm guessing that there's like an inner spirit magic thing, like a unicorn kind of thing with her, right? It just feels like that's what we're looking at here.
Yeah, there's I don't know. It feels too soon to guess, but like her being some sort of special girl, I don't know.
Inevitable.
My money's on that.
Yeah. I'm guessing there's a magic physiological reason for it. Like I don't think it's because she's like nice or good or tried the hardest. Like I like in this series, I think everybody has a secret identity, and like when we learn what it is, we find out there's some kind of new magic creature. That's my guess. Right? It's not like Harry Potter where it's like, well, you became the best wizard, Harry, because you tried the hardest.
I'm not sure if you're giving it too much credit or not.
I don't know.
Because like the mind reading lady could read her future, so she wasn't deflecting her stuff. I think Edward might just be so in love with her or something that he can't read her thoughts, or they're possible. Like soulmates or something dumb.
Yeah, he's got blood blindness. Hard to say.
It's hard to say.
Can I talk very briefly about the craft? It's just a couple.
I was about to say, let's get into the craft side. Let's get into
Twilight.
What are we calling it? Twilight.
Yeah, Twilight.
I have one thing I want to say.
Hit it.
When she goes to the bookstore, and she goes to buy the book, they do a shot where she hands the money and gets the book, and I wanted to burn down my apartment.
What made
That's all I got.
What made you so angry about the shot? I don't remember. The shot.
What a dumb shot. Yeah. She's handing money, like crumple up money, goes, here you go. And he goes, here's your book.
Here's a book.
And it's like, why did we need to see that?
You did it. You bought it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
there's another part where the waitress walks up and she's like, here's your meal. Right. Are you sure you don't want anything? It's like, why are we seeing this?
Yeah. I mean, I would argue most of the second half of this movie could have been cut and we wouldn't have cared. And like instead we just fill in the blank with like, you know, like actual family drama stuff, and that's it. Like it could have just been a dating story. Like it legit could have been like her dad comes to accept her dating Edward. You know what I mean? Like it could have been as simple as that.
Without the vampires?
No. He's supposed to be a vampire. But
I would have watched a movie about her rekindling a relationship with her dad and meeting a boy.
Yes.
And that's the movie. Yeah. He's not even a vampire.
Sure. I would have been fine with that. Okay, so the first thing is, so this movie is aggressively cold, right? Like color temperature wise. Like it's aggressively blue. And that's why you know that when they give her a faded blood colored truck, that she's going to be vampire fodder. Right, like she's driving the only red or orangish thing in the movie, and so like it's like,
symbolism,
do you think,
man.
Right? Do you think the vampires might be interested in this woman because she is driving an old blood truck? It was just like a little clumsy. I thought there are times his makeup is just baffling.
It looks like Halloween makeup.
Yes, and the lips in particular are very troubling because it's like there's no reason for him to be wearing obviously the same shade of lipstick that she is, but he is.
He looks like a sex doll that was left out in the sun.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
The makeup is not done to standard in this movie. Like, it's not good, I would argue. I'm not saying that to shit on the makeup artist. I legit think it's a directing problem where it's like, hey, as a director, you decided the amount of this and it was too much. You know, because like watch True Blood. In True Blood, it never feels as clumsy.
I'm not going to watch True Blood.
True Blood is a lot better than this. A lot better. Like, it's not close. It's not close. It's a more creative and interesting world.
I haven't heard bad things about True Blood. I just have no desire to watch it.
Totally, Dave. I understand. Although I do think that your fate is to watch basically everything, so you know, I'm not sure you're going to get away with this. But anyway, so that's my only other big comment is there are a lot of times the director clearly felt very not confident about the material, and to get away with that, the director would do these very aggressive like pushes and zooms and shit that are very distracting.
Right.
Or there were times it seems like maybe the director didn't get the performance they wanted, so they would cut to these weird, like, long lens, almost Dutch angle wide shots. Like, when you watch the love scenes between Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart, in particular their dialogue scenes, they'll have these, like, intimate conversations, and then they'll just cut to a random fucking wide, and you're like, what? Like they're tracing around him with a dolly or a Steadicam, and you're like, what is this adding to the movie?
Do you think they didn't, like, they had problems? They're cutting around something?
I can only, if that's not what they're doing, then I'm saying, as the producer of the movie, to the director, like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, what are we doing here?
Right.
Like, what are we narratively accomplishing? Is it supposed to be cool? Because we're in Twilight. So what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, that's what and maybe it's just because I don't agree with some of those decisions. Sometimes I thought it was great. Like, getting in and out of scenes, I thought this director was, like, pretty good at, slipping in and out of them pretty quick.
It's the director of a lot of, like, teen stuff, like the movie 13.
Didn't see it.
Lords of Dogtown.
That's okay.
The Nativity Story.
Okay.
Red Riding Hood. It gets weird.
They're all kind of the same genre to me.
Some TV stuff. Miss You Already. There's a lot of indie films of, like, people laughing with, like, a kind of drawn-on font, a playful font.
Yeah. So yeah. a lot of late 2000s, early 2010s indie films.
Yeah.
Look, and who am I? I'm not saying that this director sucks. I know she has talent, but there were some things that were just like, what? The makeup was definitely one of them. Cutting to the wides was weird. The color palette was a little aggressive, I thought, particularly the eliminating of reds. Although I get it, it's a vampire movie.
I get what you're saying there. I like the look because, I don't know, there's something about rainy, like Pacific Northwest, that always makes me feel comforted.
Yes, me too. The desaturated, cold feeling of it, I agree. Mm-hmm. That's a good thing. It's that because it's a vampire movie, every choice you make with red is like a scream. You know what I mean? So, like, you have to be very careful about how to do it, and the car didn't work for me. Right. That's all I can say. I did think there were, like, sort of secret MVP performances here that are being underappreciated. So, aside from the dad, I thought the teacher was, like, really giving it a lot. Like, the teacher was working real hard in that role.
Yeah, he's teaching a vampire, so what is he... Yeah.
Yeah, but he's, like, trying hard, and he's, like, selling this ridiculous field trip they're on where they're drinking mulch tea and stuff. You know, like, he's really trying.
I think actors love being teachers and stuff like this, right?
I don't know.
Because you get to be, like, kind of nerdy and dumb.
Sure.
And, like, if you do the role right, it's like that's why there's always, like, comedians in this role. You know, whenever there's a teacher.
Yes, because they can add a little humanity to an otherwise very bland part.
Right. And so I think that it's like they know, like, this is a time for, like, a little bit of comedy or a little bit of fun.
Well, I think it's also because most of the time the teacher's supposed to be sort of a slacker or underachiever type, and we just fill in the blank with comedian for that. You know what I mean? Like, so not all the time, but most of the time, that's, Hollywood's secret way of saying we don't really believe in teachers. Right? Because they rarely make like, oh, just surprisingly hot teacher. When does that ever happen? Maybe in a show about school. Anyway, moving on. So
wait. The opposite of funny teacher is surprisingly hot teacher?
Just in terms of types, Dave. Yeah, but yes, Dave, that's Hollywood math. Did you not understand?
Oh.
Yeah, there's funny teacher and then there's very hot teacher. Those are the two types.
Okay, what about like the Dangerous Minds teacher?
Hot teacher.
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's a good point.
Yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer. She's
Where
a hot
does
teacher.
Ben Stein fit into this?
Funny teacher.
Okay.
Because he's bad. He's funny bad.
Okay. It's a little erotic.
Well, he's very challenging to quantify because every time he calls roll, you gotta
that
look
voice.
Yeah, you gotta keep that pants pocket tucked away. You have to really.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta really tuck things
That
in.
voice just resonates in your loins.
Yeah, it's like a mermaid's call to your old sea
Loins.
mast. Yeah, you're right, Dave. Okay, so I could talk more about the long lens stuff, but I want to move on to the last thing we definitely planned to do, which was we wanted to just look at the movie through the lens of realizing that future Kristen Stewart would one day be in Personal Shopper, and that one day Robert Pattinson
would be in
the Lighthouse.
The Lighthouse.
Just like
that, these are two people who are starting very good careers.
Right. So like,
Kristen Stewart is also in Underwater recently. I would say she was good in that, but she doesn't get much to do.
I think Personal Shopper proves that she has a lot of emotional depth. I think
so. You just watched this for the first time, right?
I think she's got like a delivery, like she delivers lines in a way, like that sort of like looking to say a thing, retracting it. That sort of befuddled thing that she does is a thing. Whereas I don't think Robert Pattinson has quite the affect that she does.
I would argue that depending on what your views of acting with them are, they've both shown to have very good taste when it comes to choosing
Twilight,
roles. What?
Since Twilight, you mean?
I would argue that Twilight was a very good strategic career move at that age.
Undoubtedly.
They were like, hey, you want to be the next Harry Potters? Do you want to be rich by the time you're 25? They're like, yeah, sure.
Do you want to be rich by the end
of this? It didn't work out that way.
Rich by the end of the sentence. It's like,
it didn't quite work out that way, and it did feel like they disappeared briefly. And much like the Daniel Radcliffes and all child actors, but they're not a child actor, but you know what I mean.
She is. Kristen Stewart was a child actor. She was.
Oh, yeah, she was. She was in Panic Room.
Yeah, Panic Room. Yep.
She was great in that.
She was. That was a pretty good movie, actually. Not great, but pretty good. So
yeah, it's pretty good. She
has proven to have. I think that this role, Twilight, was crushing in some ways for her. Is my like it's how I recollect.
They became
that story.
memes. They both became memes,
right? And so she's had to kind of prove that she has cred. And I guess now she feels that she's done that, and so she's become a Charlie's Angel and doing underwater and such.
That's the thing. I am curious about both of their careers because I think they did a reset, and a lot of actors do this. Who was I thinking of recently? I mean, obviously there was Travolta did a reset with Pulp Fiction. I feel like Nicolas Cage has done several resets. Keanu Reeves.
Sure.
You don't think about this that much, but before Keanu Reeves, before John Wick, he wasn't doing much.
I mean,
that was credible.
He was in The Matrix, and he had to redo stuff after The Matrix.
Yeah, between The Matrix and John Wick, he had to sort of reinvent himself a little bit.
Correct.
Because he was doing some shit.
Correct.
And I do think, like, it's almost like they're like, I'm going to do indie films, build up my cred, and then if I do bigger films, if I'm, say, Batman, I can do it sort of on my terms.
I think it's... yeah, I agree. I think it's hard to be a teen star and do anything else afterward. Like anything of real substance. Like the Harry Potter kids were such big stars that they were going to get a chance to try to be in other things, for sure. But like, I think to varying degrees of success, Daniel Radcliffe has done okay carving out a new identity for himself. He's never been in a
Right.
thing that was like, wow.
Radcliffe is like one of those guys who I'm like, I like him.
Me too.
But yeah, like he has weird fucking taste.
Well, I think he's really trying hard to get away from Harry Potter. Where same
I
as,
think he's running too far. In
same as Elijah
a
Wood.
direction.
Elijah Wood kind of ran real far away from Frodo. You know?
Oh yeah, he did, which is weird because it wasn't like he was like a childhood star before that.
Yeah, and then he was Frodo, and then it was like, now I got to be in Sin City, otherwise you won't believe that I'm anything but Frodo.
Yeah, and then he's like, I'm going to be really weird.
Right.
Then
Right.
there's like, I don't know, Macaulay Culkin. He did. I thought The Good Son was like one of his best moves in that era
He's never...
with Elijah Wood, and then he just sort of disappeared for a little bit, and then he did Party Monster.
Yeah.
And so it was like almost like an adult reminder of like, I can still do movies.
I don't think he's really ever I don't think he's ever carved out a real identity apart from being the Home Alone kid.
Yeah, no,
In
I
movies.
think he's more. I mean, having talked to him,
Sure, right.
I think he's. I don't think that was ever an interest.
Yeah, of course. I'm not saying because he couldn't. I'm just saying I don't think he has. Whereas,
Right.
like Robert Pattinson in particular, of all the people here,
I think. All right, I was going to compare him a little bit to Rupert Grint because Rupert Grint from Harry Potter's. I think he's not doing much.
No.
He played Cheetah Chrome in
Yes.
the CBGB's movie, which was like
correct.
very fun to see. And I don't think he's incapable of it. I don't think he's interested.
I don't-
It's the Frankie Muniz thing too.
Yeah.
Frankie Muniz talks about like, yeah, I retired. I just like I like being rich.
Sure.
It's like, okay,
Sounds good.
that's fair.
I don't know that. I mean, Rupert Grint doesn't strike me as like an incredibly talented actor either.
But we don't know.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, we did 8 movies. We did 8 Harry Potter movies. That's a lot. He had a lot of chances to act in that movie.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So, and I mean, I would also argue, even though she's recently
I
been,
always feel weird judging kids as actors.
well, again, but you say that, but that's the job, and also that's how they get their next gig is whether they convinced you by the time they became an adult. You know, like
Right.
like I would say that the actress who played Hermione Granger, whose name just flew right out of my brain.
It's an Emma.
Oh, is she an Emma? I would argue she hasn't done anything that great since Harry Potter.
She did a Sofia Coppola movie, right?
Yeah, she was in Beauty and the Beast. She's Beauty and the Beast.
She's not an Emma. What the fuck is her name?
No, it's not Emma. It's I thought you said she was in Emma, which I hadn't seen.
No, I thought her first name was an Emma.
Emily Watkins?
No, it is. It's an Emma Watson.
Emma Watson. That's what it is.
It was an Emma.
yeah.
God damn it, I got it right.
Son of a bitch, you got it right. So,
I also don't think a lot of these kids. Like, here's the thing about. I guess. All right. Here's what it is. I don't.
you can never stop hearing her say, "How can he be nearly headless?"
No.
Just never
It's
stop
the
hearing it.
idea of judging a child actor, but by what they do as an adult. It's like if I became like I don't know a miner when I was a child,
No,
like
yeah, of
a
course.
coal miner.
Right.
I wouldn't want to be defined by that.
Nor-
I wouldn't want to be thrown to vampires either. But like it's they started before they knew what they wanted to do. I think of like Chuck from the Goonies.
Oh,
Or
sure.
Chuck,
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Who's like, I'm the funny fat kid.
Right.
And it's like, oh, he couldn't run away from that fast
Well,
enough.
right.
And then he ran away. He slimmed out. He became like an entertainment lawyer and like local politician or something. And he has a great life.
He's
And I
probably
think
raking it
there's
in,
that
too.
weird thing with child actors where it's like, whatever happened to them? Oh, they failed. It's like, no, they started their lives. Like,
Right, they
we
had-
exploited them as kids, and then when they got old, they're like, you know what? I don't want to do this. Nobody asked
or
me.
in some of the best case scenarios, they had a very lucrative first act of their life, and which allowed them the choice to make entirely different decisions as an adult than any of us could make.
Right. But it follows them, and it's
sure.
like, what a haunting thing to do to a kid. And so I think Twilight counts as well. It's like, man, they were pretty young.
Very young.
They were just starting out their career, and then they have to be asked about this all the fucking time.
But they're doing...
and it's like, that must be exhausting.
Yeah, but they're doing pretty well. Like, they might be the best we've seen coming from a show, like coming from a series like this, right? Where like their identity was basically Twilight, and they have really emerged away from it.
Yeah, look, I'd trade my life for any of these, with any of these fuckers because they have
wouldn't.
money and
Fuck that.
You wouldn't?
No,
you wouldn't
no.
trade your life for Kristen Stewart.
like
You wouldn't
my-
want to be Kristen Stewart.
Listen, I would love to be anywhere.
Who doesn't want to be Kristen
I'd
Stewart?
love to be anywhere near as attractive as her, Dave. I'd love to.
Okay.
I'd love to look in the mirror and see that smoky eye and bring a tear to my eye, just like hers does. But
Right.
but Dave, I'm proud of the person I am and the choices I make. I wouldn't trade them.
Yeah, I know. Jesus,
Don't swear at me, bro, as though I'm the
you
problem
wouldn't Freaky
here.
Friday any of these little shits?
Well, if it's just a Freaky Friday, because I know at the end we're going back. Yeah,
All right.
sure. Fuck it, man. Put me in Jacob's body. Let me see what it's like for that kid. Oh,
Has there ever been like a Freaky Friday where
they
like
stayed.
like
Where they just, it was
well, I was
permanent?
thinking like a movie where I switch bodies with Robert Pattinson and I'm just like, I need your bank account number or I'm going to cut off my fingers. You give me your
Hold 'em
fucking bank account number or you can say goodbye
Right.
to your fucking
Right.
fingers, Robert
Right,
Pattinson.
where they intentionally destroy all those weird fucking fortune teller game machines at every circus or whatever, and they just like,
Yeah.
now you're fucking stuck as a kid. How do you feel about that?
No, I don't even mean like
Yeah.
you want to stay there. I just mean like
Yeah, you just need their
there,
money.
there should be a
Right.
Freaky Friday where someone takes the body hostage.
Yes, like Looper, like they did in Looper.
Yeah, like Looper, and starts like mutilating their body
Yeah.
and being like, "You better give me some fucking money."
That's honestly kind of a good idea, Dave. I wish you weren't just spewing them out on this podcast.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's kind of a
Somebody
good
write
idea.
that down.
Yeah, can we get a producer to write that down? Yeah, we need
really like that
producers
idea.
writing our ideas down. We're really fucking up today. This podcast, by the way, has probably been an hour 40 so far. I don't know. Just like
I don't know, man. I lost
Me
track.
too.
This is how it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this segment, I want to keep coming back to it because I like continuing to think. And then one day they emerged into like very talented and emotionally fulfilling performers who've made good choices in cinema. But for a little
I
while,
think
they were
Spike
doing
goes a
this.
long way. And that's the thing. Here's another thing: is you judge them Harry Potters, but we don't know what their future's going to be. These two were, they're still, they have time to like grow up and like fucking. Have you watched? And I know he wasn't like nothing before this moment, but fucking Haunting of Hill House, the dad, and learning he's Elliot and realizing he's been in a lot of like Mike Flanagan stuff and being like, holy shit, Elliot is killing it.
I mean, yeah,
Like Elliot from E.T., I was always like, I guess he went away.
Wait, so what
no.
was he in? What was he in?
The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix.
I didn't see that. He was in Gangs of New York, and he was pretty good.
Was he in Gangs from New York?
Yeah, Gangs of New York.
Of
Yeah,
New York?
he was. Yeah.
Henry Thomas.
Yeah.
He's a. It's more that just I never kept track of Elliot.
No, he
was.
was an amazing kid actor, by the way. Like,
Yeah.
like
And
my
he's a great
God.
now actor.
Well, he
you should watch The Haunting of Hill House. You know what he did?
tell me.
You know what he
Tell me,
kind of
Dave.
killed it in recently?
Tell me.
He was in Doctor Sleep. Did you see that?
No, I haven't because for some reason I thought you said that at some point I should watch it and we would talk about it, and I was like, okay, well, I got to get to that. I just haven't yet.
I don't know if it was me,
Okay.
but I this is not really a spoiler.
Sure. Here we go.
but-
Sure, hit it.
Well, do you know who he plays in that? He plays the hardest role to play in Doctor Sleep.
So, and Doctor Sleep is the sequel to The Shining, right?
Yeah,
Well, then does he play the kid grown up? I thought that was Ethan.
that's
Ewan
Ewan McGregor.
Ewan McGregor, yeah.
Not Ethan.
Yeah.
No, he plays Jack.
Oh.
He plays Jack Nicholson's Jack Torrance.
Oh.
It's not long. It's not a big role.
That's cool.
But that's big fucking shoes to fill.
Yeah.
And he kills
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since, like, that's been 40 years now since that role happened.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. That's cool. I'm
Yeah.
excited to hear that. Anyway,
He's-
I still think that out of all the projects I've heard from child actors, I have not yet seen the project that was better than either The Lighthouse or Good Time. Have you seen Good Time?
Good time. No, I haven't. Is that Robert?
Yes, and it's with the Safdie brothers. It was the one before Uncut Gems.
Okay.
Check
I
that out. That movie.
he's
fucking
in. I
rules.
saw him in High Life. Did you see
I
High
haven't
Life?
seen High Life. No, I keep hearing about it.
I really liked High Life. That was very good.
Yeah.
It's a very it's a sci-fi. It's more of an art house film than a sci-fi,
Sure.
and I think that might have tricked some people.
Sure.
Kind of the way Under the Skin
Oh.
is like not. It's a horror movie, but it's also kind of an art house film.
Under the Skin has one of the best, like that, the horror conceit
that
of it,
film.
and the execution of the way the murders happen is
Mm-hmm.
terrifying. absolutely, completely terrifying.
Yeah, it's the old honey pot.
Yeah, and it's like...
And that the honey envelops you and then slowly digests you.
And you can't believe how real it feels.
That movie's fucking... I love that movie.
It's great.
Well, it feels real because they made Scarlett Johansson go around and actually try to pick up men.
Right.
Yeah.
It definitely like takes almost all the moviness out of it. Like it takes almost all the movie out of it, so that it's kind of just watching stuff happen.
Yeah.
It's quite good. Anyway, do you think we have an episode yet? Have we achieved?
I don't know.
Have we
guess
achieved?
We covered
Guylight?
Twilight. We covered other things. We're nearing 2 hours, give or take.
Sure. I don't care how long.
There'll be a little bit trimmed off here.
I don't care how long it goes. Because
well, we're running out of things, right?
No, Dave, we could do this for fucking ever, but there's gonna be 5 episodes, so I don't want to spoil everything.
Right.
All I want to say is there's no universe where riding somebody's back is the sexiest way to get to know them. Like I can't say that.
You
enough.
ever been on a horse?
Sure, but I also haven't tried to fuck one. Am I missing out?
Right.
Is that a whole thing that I need to look into?
Whatever. It's very prude of you, but everybody has their own ways.
Thank you for judging me on the exit here, Dave. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Jesus.
Wow. Whew. Real bad showing from me.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I guess I haven't known a horse in the biblical sense, Dave, so maybe that's on me.
It's weird.
Sure. Sure.
No, I think the overall thing I want to say about this movie is that I kind of liked it, despite all its faults.
Me too.
I enjoyed a lot of it.
First half I liked a lot.
Yeah, and I maybe it's just because I like this schlock. I think a biggest compliment I could give it is you didn't need the vampire stuff at the end.
I think
it kind of could have just been like a romantic drama where one of them's a fucking vampire, and it's just as cheesy, and I would have fucking loved it.
I would say the vampire plot, and by the vampire plot I mean like the Case of the Week piece, made it a worse movie. Because I think that if they had just found a way to write it so that it was like, look, let's just do the she's all that version of this. You know what I mean? Like,
here's what you do. You have, the scene where she's assaulted by the random dudes who for some reason are spread out.
Right.
They're coming from different directions. Like, hey, what's up?
And
baby?
then Robert Pattinson.
It's like, what is the plan here? What is this? This is fucking madness. And Edward shows up because he's stalking
sells
her.
us a couple of Volvos.
And he goes rawr, and like growls at them.
Yeah.
If he had like broken one of their heads,
yes, which is what should have happened,
like just smashed his skull in and the brains came out, and she was like, "Holy fuck!" And the conflict was like, "I love you, but you don't regard my species as like much else than like cattle, and this is kind of fucked up, right?" And like, you're so old,
right?
And like all the like, if it was like the logistics of it, and like, how do we ever make this work? And you just do a straight up romantic drama that way.
If they took the premise more seriously, and like everything else about it was more subdued, and they just like how does it work?
Right.
That would be a fine story. It wouldn't be a franchise that everybody cared about, though.
And like, instead of the narration, like, just have her be telling a story to like a reporter in like a city, and it's like her telling that like an interview.
So what you want is like, you want the version of this
and like
that's like Rose from Titanic, just like telling the story of how she lost the brooch or some shit, and like, I once loved the vampire.
He like bites her, and then they become a family, and then they bite a little girl.
Right, and then they do that whole thing for a while.
Yeah, and then they meet Antonio Banderas, and everything goes to hell. I that's the thing, is it's hard not to compare this to Interview with the Vampire, because that's a drama about being a vampire. It's not a horror movie. Watching that recently, I forgot he was a slave owner at the beginning, and I was like, oh, dude.
Right.
Not cool.
Kirsten Dunst.
I mean, I know that this is when you were born, but I forgot that whole part.
Kirsten Dunst, again, a child actor, fucking slays
Kirsten
in that
Dunst
movie.
in that is fucking killing.
Yeah, she's so good at it. I totally agree.
Because she's playing the most interesting character, which is she's doing what I thought they were going to do with Edward,
Yes.
and what I think they were trying to do, which is that she's like a 90-year-old woman
Yes.
in a child's body.
Right. She has the mind of a full-fledged adult that has aged, but her body's still this kid.
Right.
That's what would
and
happen.
I thought that's... But the problem is if Edward had that, then he wouldn't be attracted to a high schooler. That's the
In
other...
theory.
Like, that's, again,
In
he's
theory.
a weird pervert. Because who would ever want to live through high school? Who would ever want to date a high schooler? Like, what adult would want to...
No, it sounds like
I
a
know
nightmare.
that's a broader
Sounds like a
question
nightmare.
about... What?
It sounds like a nightmare. Like dating one? I don't understand
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I don't get that.
It all sounds like a nightmare because it's like, why would you ever want to hang out? You have to be stunted in some way. Like, I remember when I was like in my teens and 20s and there was like the cool 30-year-old who would buy us beer.
And that person's a maniac. Right.
Exactly. And then looking back, I'm like, oh no. Why were they hanging out with us?
They were the true vampire.
Why were they partying with
Yeah,
us?
yeah.
Or even like someone who's like 20, 25-ish. It was just like, why were you doing that? And I remember going in my hometown, like being like in my late 20s with my friend who used to party with me, and we saw a bunch of teen punks. And we were like, oh, let's be the cool, like we had. You know, let's go talk to the teen punks. And then we spent about 5 minutes with them. We're like, I have to get the fuck out of here. These people are insufferable.
Well,
because they're
and
teenagers.
particularly, right. And like, if they are an old person who likes hanging out with teenagers, it's because they still don't think of the teenagers as people. It just gives them an excuse to be the worst version of themselves.
Right. They're a weird
Yeah,
pervert.
exactly. It's like there's just no good version of it, except for, and we haven't considered this, perhaps the dude's got sort of a Lenny from Memento problem, where just like they're wiping him. You know what I mean? Like he's getting wiped every couple years or
Well,
whatever.
you're opening up a whole new
That's
thing
what-
there.
I
Yeah.
mean-
but he remembers getting bit in the Spanish flu, so I don't think that's the case.
No, I know it doesn't totally work, but like, it's kind of the only way I buy this conceit.
Either that or his brain is permanently in teenage.
I just think the knowledge alone that you like, just if you put in all the, like, if you matrixed in all the things that you would learn in 100 years.
Well, she says, like, how old are you? And he says 17 is his answer. And then she says, how long have you been 17? And he says, a while. So that's a fate worse than death.
Right.
Like, your
Right.
brain is permanently in this, like, hormonal adolescence where you're just learning empathy and your dick is calling all the shots.
Screaming at you
What a
randomly at
nightmare.
this and that.
Yeah, and that's just your life. That's your eternity.
Well, again, you have the
Fuck,
benefit.
someone, he put a stake through his heart. He'll thank
Somebody
you.
let him marry a steak. One of the two.
Yeah, one of the two.
You know, I still think you're thinking with the benefit of being like a few years older than that, because like when you're a little older than teenage, you don't miss it, but when you're teenage, you don't want to be older, really. You know what I mean?
I do. Okay, here's what I miss about being a teenager.
Yeah.
I miss being able to take mushrooms at 3 a.m. when I have to work
And
the
be
next
fine.
day and thinking nothing
Right.
of it.
Right.
I miss that. I miss the lack of
I
consequences.
miss like eating
I
pizza
miss-
and not thinking, oh, I need to drink enough water because I'm going to get dehydrated from the pizza.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I miss being able to treat my body like a dumpster. And be like, whatever, I'm gonna live forever. And like I miss like driving on the back roads of Massachusetts in a swamp and getting high. Like for fun, just for fun. Like that's yeah.
I miss the
Like I
idea-
get that. But he's not doing any
No,
of
no,
that
no.
shit. He's just playing baseball with his dad.
But not with his vamp dad.
With his dad and mom and like his siblings who are they like fuck siblings? We haven't even talked about how they're fuck siblings.
They basically have to be, right? Well, I think they've been very coy about how the sex is going to work with vampires. Like very coy about it. By which I mean like they're very coy about sort of again because the hunger sex thing is interwoven. That's the thing that I'm like that's a huge mistake. To put those things together is a huge mistake.
You never had a hunger sex like you've ever been like I can't tell which it is.
No, Dave, because I don't get like a great white shark anytime sex is offered. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like I don't
sure.
think of sex as a frenzy.
You ever not know if you're like, is that my stomach or is that
my
lower?
boner?
Is I yeah.
Is that my loins or my belly, Colin? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
No.
Let me eat first and then see.
No, I hope to achieve that, though. I hope to displace my body parts enough in my mind that...
I do think, I get the impression with vampires that he says it. He says, you're my own personal heroine, which again, red
flag.
And like, that's another version this could have gone is she breaks up with him and then she has a vampire stalker.
I think that's gonna happen in this series, right?
Probably. I don't know. But I think it's that where it's like, it's not hunger like we think of hunger. He doesn't want like a bag of Funyuns. It's like satisfying a craving that drugs satisfy or sex satisfies. It's an addiction.
That's why it's like, well, then why isn't he having sex and frenzying out on her when the opportunities arise? I mean, the real answer for that is because the movie needs to be PG-13. But like,
yeah, or he's like buttering her up for some weird pervert shit.
Right. It's like, sure, maybe they're gonna have sex on a bed of nails in episode 3, and it'll all make sense, or whatever.
Someone's gonna pump a baby in her. That's all I know. I don't know who it is.
What if it turned out to be Jacob's dad? You know what I mean?
Oh man,
I love that actor, by the way.
Yeah, why not? If she was like, "Fuck both of you guys," I want a real man.
Wasn't he the actor?
And it becomes like the movie Adorer or whatever, where like the two kids fuck each other's moms.
That's
It becomes like a weird French film about like weird like what are the lines that could be drawn.
What's the difference?
But I guess that's already the thing because she's dating like 100-year-old guy.
Once you're dating a vampire who has been a vampire for a while, every single lurid love conversation is fair game. Every single
it?
Oh yeah. Everything except for it brings up every problem except for incest, essentially.
I would argue that a real vampire is the summit. It's the summit of sexual conquest.
That's the idea. That's the fucking idea.
Whereas a person who says they're a vampire and acts like a vampire
rung.
but isn't a vampire is the bottom.
It's a big ladder to climb. Yeah, a big sexual ladder to climb.
But it's a big swing. Yeah, you might if you fuck it up.
Right. If it turns out you're just dating a goth, then congratulations, your future.
Look, nothing wrong with goths. I've hung out with a lot of goths, and that's why I feel so comfortable making fun of goths.
Yeah, but we're talking like a goth minus here, like a goth minus. I understand.
I'm talking about like a goth LARPing, which again, it's nerdy. It's not the worst thing, but I think if anybody's spent enough time, and I think this is any scene, but like my hometown had one nightclub, and it was a great nightclub.
Where the fuck is this going?
Oh, it's going all sorts of places.
LARP vampires.
They had a weekly drag show. Yeah. They had an amazing drag show. But they had a goth night, right? And they also had an 18 plus night.
Yeah.
That was also a goth night.
Okay.
And so when you meet when you go there with your friends and you're like 18, 19
and drinking cokes.
And then you meet the people going there who are like 30 who are going to the 18 plus goth night.
That's a bad.
You meet a lot of creepy goth guys.
Yeah. I understand. This person.
And so I have this very specific image of what that looks like.
This person that you're describing, they exist in all the cultures. They're not explicitly goth, but the idea.
Every culture has their skeezy older guy who's like, "Hey man, step away." Yeah. In goth culture, it's just also synonymous with someone saying that they're a vampire or something like that, or creating some lore,
right?
Calling themselves like the Oracle, it's all.
Well, she plunged headlong into that investment. Like she put all her chips on red with this,
I have to give the movie a lot of credit for showing his superhuman strength before him going, "I'm a vampire."
Right.
Because if he had just told her that, I'd like to hope she would have laughed in his face.
Right, he would have needed to prove it. She needed proof. I totally agree, but she got proof.
I loved a version where he climbs up the hill and he's like, "See," and sparkling. She's like, "Yeah, none of this is vampire. I don't know what you are, but none of this is vampire. You might
just be fancy. You might just be fancy.
I think you're like fancy Superman."
So I can't say this enough. You don't need to unbutton your shirt to prove that your skin is made of diamonds, bro. I get it. I already see that. God,
Yeah.
that's
something for the ladies.
There's never going to be a better line delivery than the way she says that line. Just your skin's made of diamonds. You're beautiful. You're perfect.
It's
Holy
perfect.
Shit. Dave, we cannot justify that. Tom is going to murder us in our sleep.
Okay, let's stop.
Yeah.
What is Tom? Tom has nothing to do with
but
this.
he's going to at least check he's going to look at that we did a podcast, and he's going to look at the
I'm
time.
editing
I know, but he's going to look at the time and be like, Dave, what the fuck are we doing? This isn't the gamefully unemployed way. That's what he's going to say.
We haven't set a time. Look, I want to go because I'm hungry, and I want to get some string cheese up in here,
yeah.
or I want to have sex. I'm not sure which.
Sure, or
right
both.
now.
I could see you.
Or
I
both.
could see you spreading that string
Fuck
cheese on a drifter.
Yeah, fuck some string cheese. Why not?
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. I'm sure you. Everybody
I
can see it right now.
I
They're
am
picturing
seeing it.
They have no choice.
Yeah, you're forcing that in my owls.
You've been incepted. Adam, I want you to plug where we can find you.
Well, you can find all my other podcast endeavors on the Small Beans Network, which is you can find my video game about my podcast about video games that I do with my buddy Mike Swaim called One Upsmanship there. You can find my podcast about the high art of low art movies called Director Piece Theater with my buddy Abe there. And my podcast with my buddy Maggie about sort of learning and growing and knowing another person through their taste in pop culture items called I'll Show You Mine If You Show Me Yours. All that's on the Small Beans Network. You can find me on Twitter at @TheRealGans. You can find me on Instagram if you'd like, but, I can't tell you that you're going to like it, but you can see it. And, one day you'll see me in the theater, and, I'll let you know.
Nice. I have 2 Instagram accounts. I didn't even realize
Holy shit,
this.
Really? Is one of them goth?
I have the one that
a goth one?
Neither of them I pay attention to. I don't look at or update my Instagram. I've been really liking all of your podcasts. They're keeping me very entertained.
I really enjoy podcasting. Is very fun, and in some ways, it's like a good way to just keep a friendship. You know what I mean? Like it's like a good way to hang out.
it all fall apart. Yeah.
I'd just be sitting in a dark cave somewhere if I didn't have my podcast. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I
Thank you, Dave.
Especially yeah.
Sure.
I should probably plug what I do. This network, which is Gamefully Unemployed. If you found this podcast, then you know where to find our podcasts. If you're interested, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed, where we have exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman and Fox Mulder is a Maniac. We have a TeePublic store as well, tpublic.com/stores/gamefullyunemployed.
You guys have great merch.
Where you can find all sorts of
Love your
shirts.
merch.
Yeah, maybe we'll make some merch from this. Who could say?
Yeah.
Who could say what the future? I'm not a vampire. I can't read the future.
Not even a possible future. Just
Yeah.
You're time blind.
I also I want to plug @GamefullyUn, our Twitter.
Yeah.
I never plug our Twitter.
Yeah. You should. You guys are fun with the Twitter there. Hypecast is one of my favorite podcasts. I would say it's like a comedy zenith with all the people you love from Cracked and elsewhere. They all stop by and just have a wonderful time chatting about movies.
Last week we had Sean Bailey on. We're about to have a good line of people who haven't been on before. We're trying to secure a few others that you know and love as well. I don't know. Definitely check out Hypecast. People seem to love that.
Hypecast is like the gateway drug to this network. Like once you're on that, baby, you're into all the sweet meat coming soon.
Right. That's the sweet meat smell. You smell it. And then you're like, I want to eat it.
That's why you and I can't do podcasts in person anymore. It's not because of COVID. It's because I get that sweet meat bloodlust in my eyes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's real fucked up.
It really is. It's just like drooling on my chair. Eyes go black.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing for 2 fucking years before COVID came.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Every time we would record, it was like these black, like these obsidian orbs staring at me.
Mantis eyes. Just black, soulless.
Very weird.
Also, never cleaned up the drool. definitely was always your problem.
Oh yeah, that was your calling card.
Yeah. Well, Dave, I think
that's
we did it.
I think we can say goodbye.
Dave.
I usually edit these abruptly where I stop suddenly while we're talking.